Why is it so hard to change? You know, we start off with good intentions, and then I fall back into the same person. I don't believe in myself. Is this really possible? Well, let's talk about that, because we have to begin to understand that there's a certain physiology that takes place between the brain and the body. I mean, every time we have a thought, we make a chemical. If we have great thoughts or unlimited thoughts, we make chemicals that signal the body for us to begin to feel exactly the way we were just thinking, which would be great or unlimited. So this etherical thing called thought is running around in the brain, fires a set of circuits. The circuits then release chemicals, and the chemicals travel to the body as messengers to signal the body for us to feel exactly the way we were thinking. So if you were thinking unhappy thoughts or negative thoughts, in a matter of seconds, you would begin to feel unhappy or negative. So now the body then gets the signal from the brain, and we begin to have mind and body working together. We begin to have our thoughts stimulating our body, and we begin to think negatively, we begin to feel negatively. Now once we begin to feel negative, and we're noticing that we're feeling that way, it's very appropriate for us to think equal to how we feel, which then makes more chemicals for us to feel the way we think and think the way we feel. And this chemical cycle, this chemical continuity, creates what's called a state of being. So a person says, I'm an unhappy person, because they've memorized that chemical state of being. Now if you think about this, the repetitive cycle, the redundancy of making those same chemicals, 20 years of hatred, 10 years of anger, 15 years of judgment, the chemicals that are being created are conditioning the body over time to become the mind. And by repeating the thoughts over and over again and repeating the feelings, I said, if we do that enough times, we condition the body to become the mind. Here's an example. So you say, well, how does the body become the mind? Well, if you're feeling in the state of mind called suffering, and you've mastered that feeling, the body knows better than the brain. So if the body knows the state of mind of unhappiness better than the conscious brain knows happiness, because it hasn't really had the experience, then the body just takes one stray thought or one stimuli from the environment, and the next stimulus from the environment, and the next thing you know, the person begins to act in repeatable ways. So to change then is to lift the mind out of the body and to put it back in the brain. And that takes an act of will. That takes effort. Nobody tells us that change is going to be difficult. Nobody says, hey, in the midst of change, you're going to be uncomfortable. Well, it's true, because when you begin to break the same chemistry, you interrupt the chemical continuity of thinking and feeling. If you say, today I'm no longer going to suffer, today I'm no longer going to feel sorry for myself, today I'm no longer going to be making excuses or blaming anybody, and you begin to stop the same thoughts and same actions, you're no longer making the same chemistry to the body, and the body begins to go in chaos. It begins to revolt because it's been conditioned for 10 or 20 years. And it begins to send signals back to the brain. And it sends signals both through the central nervous system and through the circulatory system. So through the circulatory system and through the central nervous system, if the body has become the mind, it begins to send signals back to the brain, and those signals come in the form of what I call subvocalizations or chatter or voices that begin to tell us, you can start tomorrow, you're unworthy, this is a good reason to suffer, this doesn't feel right. And the moment we begin to respond to those voices, and we begin to accept those voices as true, we create the same chemistry that allows us to begin to act and think in predictable ways again. So most people don't change it because when they start to make their changes and they notice that they're going from mind being in one state and body being in another state, in the process of change, there's got to be a way to begin to teach the body a new state or recondition it with a new mind. Your personality creates your personal reality. Now, your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's listening to me right now has created the present personal reality called your life. It also means then if you wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, then on a fundamental level, you would have to change some thoughts that you have about yourself or your life, behaviors or habits that you continuously demonstrate, or feelings and emotional reactions that you've memorized that's become part of your identity. Now, the new science tells us that we are not doomed by our genes, that we're not hardwired to be the same for the rest of our life, that we're marvels of adaptability and change. And most people then, I think all of us, try to create a new personal reality as the same personality. But this new science tells us that we can change both our mind and our bodies because of this new science called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity tells us that we're changed by every thought we think, every experience we have, every new choice we make, every new experience and emotion that we can conjure up. The brain literally changes to reflect a new mind. And because of the science of epigenetics, that we can signal new genes in new ways. But if we keep doing the same things and thinking the same thoughts and responding to the same circumstances in the same way, we keep signaling the same genes that ultimately cause us to head to our genetic destiny. Change your mind, though, and you can begin to signal new genes that can change your health. And because of this theory in quantum physics that says that your subjective mind has an effect on your objective world, then maybe then when we change how we think and feel inside of us, that those thoughts and feelings become the very blueprints of our destiny. So science is the contemporary language of mysticism. And because we can use science to demystify the mystical, it gives every person the opportunity to experiment in their life. So can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet? But you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like that event has already happened? And can you emotionally embrace a future or reality that it already exists as a potential in the quantum field? And can you emotionally embrace that reality over and over again so you begin to signal new genes in new ways so that your body is physically changed to look like the event has happened? Because when your brain and body are physically changed ahead of the actual event, then they're no longer a record of the past, but now, in fact, a map to the future. And to live by this law is to live by the quantum law, which says that the environment is an extension of our mind. And when we truly change our mind, our life changes.